Welcome to Yin and Young. The following is a story taken from Chapter 2. I have called it The Locked Door and the Little Burglar. I hope you enjoy it. On an early evening in October, after eating dinner, Bobby was looking for something to do. He wandered through the open door of the spare room. The spare room was directly across from the living room, connected by a small hallway. To the right and down the hall was his mom and dad's bedroom. To the left was the bathroom, and at the end of the hall, his bedroom. The spare room was small and sparsely furnished, with only a bed to the right and a desk and a chair to the left. There wasn't much to attract a person. However, there was a large plastic tub full of pens on the desk that invited Bobby's attention. Deciding to investigate, he closed the door. He reached up and grabbed the container, pulling it to his chest. He turned, and finding it not very heavy, upended the container, dumping the pens onto the bed. Surveying the tangled assortment, he selected one of the many red pens in the bunch. With his little toddler fingers and a meditative concentration, Bobby learned the procedure of clicking a pen. Turning it around in his hands, he did what he had observed adults do many times, which was to press the plunger on the end of the pen. As expected, the ink end popped out the opposite side. He tried pushing the ink part back into the pen, but this only resulted in marking his finger with ink. He dropped the pen and rubbed the ink on his finger, staring at it. Picking the pen back up, he stared at the ink end and turned the pen around. Something snapped, and the ink end disappeared into the shell once again. It snapped so hard that the pen fell out of his hand. What was that, he wondered, and why was the pen fixed again? He pushed the white plunger again, and again the ink end poked out, and again he was unable to return the ink end back into the shell. It was then that he noticed that if he pushed the plunger, it locked into place with a small white protrusion extending from the side of the pen frame. He tried pressing that protrusion, and that is when the pen snapped, the ink end gone once again. Bobby clicked and snapped a red pen in this way several times, feeling a sense of accomplishment. There were other pens which looked more smooth, like fish, round and shiny, unlike the red pens which had flat sides. A silver belt separated the top of the pen from the bottom. They came in several colors, such as mustard yellow, pea green, or brown. Bobby discovered that he could separate the pens by twisting them. Separating the pens led him to further discover the silver ring in the middle falls off. He could pull the ink tube out, and a spring would follow, and sometimes the silver plunger came out with a little white piece attached to it. He started mixing the colors and attempted to join the brown pen to the yellow one. Eventually he tried to return things as they were, but it wasn't easy. The pens didn't look right. Some pens didn't click anymore, or the plungers didn't return to their former positions. The ink on some pens remained either stuck in permanent extension or flopped in and out of the pen tip randomly. His father called from the other side of the door. "Bobby, it's bedtime. Time to change into your pajamas." Bobby realized the difficulty he got himself into with all the pens and pieces spread across the chenille bed cover. With shaking hands and small, infirm fingers, Bobby didn't know how to restore the pens back. Everything had a feeling of urgency when the door opened, and there was his father. "Bobby!" Bobby looked up, stunned at how quickly his father appeared in the door. "Didn't I tell you? You need to get into your pajamas. What's all this mess?" "I was just fixing these," Bobby began. "I'll fix you!" his father roared. He grabbed Bobby's hand roughly and pulled him into the air, hauling him off through the door to get changed. Somehow, the pens all returned to proper order, as Bobby learned several days later. but the image of his father appearing in the bedroom door stuck forever in Bobby's mind. There was another door, the back door, which was a few steps lower off from the kitchen door. The kitchen door remained open mostly, but in the winter it too was shut. Between this shut kitchen door and the outside door was a scattered arrangement of cold boots and shoes. When people entered from outside, they kicked off their footwear, which piled haphazardly about. The snow falling from these boots and shoes melted into puddles that never made their way inside the warmer, drier part of the house. However, there was also the passageway between the kitchen and the stairs, leading to the basement. Whenever Bobby went down to the basement, his socks got wet from the cold puddles on the floor of the entryway. "Bobby, come here," his mother said one day, late in winter. "I want you to see this door," she said, as she led Bobby through the kitchen door to the door that opened directly outside. "You see, when the door handle is like this, the door is locked. When the door is locked, then no one can get in. I want you to check and be sure this door is locked all the time. If you see it is unlocked, then you need to lock it. Do you understand? Don't unlock it." "Okay," he said. The door lock reminded him of the pen plunger. If the door handle was in, the door was locked. If the door handle was out, the door was unlocked. Bobby was very dutiful and careful to check the door several times each day. Whenever he went into the kitchen, he ran down the steps, dodged the cold puddles, and checked the door. "The door's locked, Mummy," he reported cheerfully. She was on the phone at the end of the kitchen counter and nodded to him with a smile. She was often having important phone calls with her friends, sometimes so quietly that Bobby could not hear what was said. Bobby must have done his lock monitoring job very well. Later, in the early days of summer, after everything had melted and the grass was green, his mother took Bobby in the MG to go pick up his daddy. Ben was a manager at Smitty's restaurant, but had Chinese food delivered from down the street. When Hannah arrived, Ben locked up the doors of the restaurant and threw the bags of warm food behind the driver's seat. Bobby had to sit on the small bench at the back of the two-seater, as there was no other place to sit. "Bobby, you watch these bags don't fall," his father said, as they climbed into the car. He turned the key, and the car rumbled into life. They soon pulled up to the house and slid out of the car into the cool early evening. Ben grabbed the bags and was the first to the door. He discovered the door was locked. "Bobby, check the front door, will you?" Bobby raced around to the front and tried a couple of times. The front screen didn't open. He came back around. "Can't get in, huh?" Ben said. He shifted the bag of food from one hand into the other, reached deep into his pockets, jingled around, and muttered, "Shit, I didn't bring my keys. Hannah, do you have your keys?" Hannah did not. "Well, why the hell would you go and lock the door if you didn't have the keys?" Hannah didn't reply. Ben continued to search his pockets, setting the food down on the step, and concentrated on various keys attached to his work key ring, but no luck. The sun was setting and it was getting harder to see. Soon it would be very dark. "We're just going to have to break in," Ben announced. He walked over to the small rectangular basement window where he bent down, and with one hand on his leg and another on the edge of the window he tried to grasp and pull it outward. Nothing happened. The window remained. Bobby watched intently, getting down close with his father. Ben got on both knees and, using both hands, pulled once more, and the window gave way, bending outward on a hinge. The latch had been left open. No damage done. Aha! Everyone seemed excited by this, but who could fit through the window? Not Ben, and not Hannah. Only Bobby could fit through such a small hole, but the sun had already gone down, and the night insects were beginning their music. "Bobby, you need to go down through this window for Daddy. Daddy will hold you and let you down. You just run up the steps and open the door, okay?" Bobby was happy to be part of the excitement, despite the dark of the basement. Bobby would be doing something important, and just as he was careful to be sure the door was locked, he would be happy to ensure that the door was unlocked. Bobby got down on his belly. It was awkward at first, sliding backwards into the gaping window, feeling the cool rocks and tufts of grass rubbing his belly as his shirt slid upward. Getting through the window was the hardest part. Bobby scraped his belly and chin on the frame of the window, but after that it was only him and the darkness. His father also laid down on his belly and held Bobby with both hands. "Okay, that's it, son. That's it. Easy. Easy. Can you feel the floor yet?" "No," Bobby grunted quietly, his feet swinging out and back as his body and face rubbed the surface of the basement wall. "How about now?" his father grunted. "No." Bobby was worried. Will he disappoint his father? It seems he couldn't do the job he had been given. He swung his legs this way and that way, banging his knees against the wall, and finally used his feet to push against the wall. At least the wall gave a feeling of stability, but it made him pull against his father's grip. No, don't do that," his father continued with effort. He let go of one hand and lowered Bobby further into the darkness. "Just let your feet hang down. Look at your feet. Can you see anything to step on?" At that moment Bobby's foot caught something. His body twirled a moment and once again released, mid-air. "What was that?" Ben said. He reached his head in and said, "Oh, there's a little table there. Do you see it? Try and put your foot there." A little child's kitchen table stood against the wall, the kind used for playing house with dolls and coffee or teacups. Bobby found the spot and rested his foot. He pushed and found the tension between his father and him was released. He didn't need to be held. He let go. He stood secure for just a moment when the closeness of the wall made him lose balance, and he dropped the small distance of the table to the floor. He was in. "Bobby, are you okay?" "Yep." Bobby was okay, but a bit disoriented. "Do you see the steps?" Look at me, son. You see Daddy? You see where I'm pointing? No, look at me, son. Look at where my voice is. The steps should be this way, you see? Over there." From the dim light of the window, Bobby could see his daddy pointing. He could barely see the steps leading up out of the basement, but it was clear the direction he had to go. He got on his feet and clambered up the stairway, feeling his way up, using the banister to guide him. He found the familiar locked door, unlocked it, and opened it to the soft glow of the evening sky. "That's my boy," Bobby heard his father say, and the lights were switched on. Soon enough the house was filled with sound. The bags were opened and the food spread across the counter and stove. The salty aroma of Chinese food marked the momentous occasion. Together they sat at the kitchen table, and Bobby tried an egg roll for the first time. As they sat, Ben looked at his son and smiled. He reached out and tousled Bobby's hair, saying, "You were a little burglar tonight." His father chortled affectionately, "You broke into your own house." Bobby sat, enjoying the food and the comfort of living in his father's praise. After the evening bath and dressed in his cotton pajamas, Bobby came out from the bedroom to see his mother and father sitting on the couch. He approached them both to climb up, but was hesitant, not sure where to put his foot. His father reached down and with a slight lift helped Bobby clamber up on the waiting laps of his mother and father. "Aren't you a handsome boy?" crooned his father. "Do you like your new pajamas?" "Yeah. They sure are soft, aren't they?" Bobby nodded and grunted in reply as the two made affectionate exchanges with one another. In his father's gentle hands, Bobby luxuriated in tender affection. Bobby's pajama top raised up to show his belly button. Spotting this, his father said, "Oh, what's that? Do you know what that is?" Bobby looked down at his own navel, and then up at his father questioningly. "That is the screw that connects to your bum. If we unscrew this here," his father pretended to fit a screwdriver into Bobby's navel. "No!" Bobby giggled and tried to pull his pajama top down. His father, seeing the pleasure Bobby was taking in this attention, blew a raspberry on his belly, and Bobby howled with giggles. Bobby's father repeated this a couple times more. Then, after a pause, his father said, "How about this?" He grabbed Bobby's right foot and raised it up so Bobby could see his own toes. "What are these, Bobby?" "Toes." "No, not toes. They're piggies." "No, toes." "Piggy toes," his father replied. Bobby's father proceeded to pinch each toe lightly, beginning with the smallest one. "This little piggy, do you know what he did?" Bobby shook his head, wondering what was coming next. "This little piggy went to market," his father said. "Do you know what the market is? That means Piggy went to the store to buy groceries." His father then went to the next toe. "This little piggy stayed home." Each little piggy's description required his father's voice to raise slightly higher each time, and Bobby began to experience the wonder of anticipation, barely holding his giggles inside. "This little piggy had roast beef, and this little piggy had none." His father's voice paused with a moment of sadness at this last statement. But then, in a moment of practiced anticipation, he grabbed the biggest toe, saying, "And this little piggy—" He paused like the pause at the top of a roller coaster, sucking in a deep breath. Bobby's eyes were wild with thrills of terror and anticipation, mouth agape, waiting for the pronouncement. "Ran wee 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 all the way home." Bobby's body arched in an orgasm of tickles, filling his body with pleasure and a paroxysm of laughter. In the moments of calm that followed, his father pressed his lips together against each foot in turn, and blew raspberries so as to produce another round of gently ticklish kisses. "How about we do the other foot now?" Bobby pulled his foot away, squealing at the thought. Then, looking sideways at his father, he stuck his foot out a little, tempting fate. Bobby's father grabbed the foot, but Bobby pulled away. With prodding and encouragements, the next foot would be held and inspected, and the little piggy would once again find himself going to market. As the tickles diminished, Bobby's father asked him which piggy he wanted to be. Did he want to go to the market? Bobby shook his head, no. Did he want to stay home? Bobby did nothing. How about having roast beef? Again, Bobby shook his head, no. So how about having no food? Do you want to be that piggy? Again, no. But before his father could continue, Bobby blurted out, "Home!" "Oh, you want to be the wee-wee?" And as his father reached to tickle Bobby again, Bobby pushed his father's hand away and said, "No, home." "You want to stay home like the second piggy," he said. Bobby nodded. He wanted to stay home.